This is part of our preview series, looking at a garden that I am helping with at Chelsea. I am mentoring Emma Tipping, who is the young designer. This feature is designed to showcase 4 individual nurseries. One of them is slightly different. They don't grow plants at all. Instead, they grow mushrooms, fungi. And I am going on a day trip to find out more about this. Caley Brothers is a business run by sister team Jodie and Lorraine. They exhibited at Chelsea last year with the first mushroom exhibit and they won a gold medal. Today they're going to show me how to make one of their mushroom logs.
So we've got a log here. I'm going to learn how to make this into a mushroom log that we're going to be able to harvest mushrooms from. Can you explain what we're doing, why we're doing it?
Okay, so here we have a log that we've sourced from a recently felled tree within the last 6 to 8 weeks. So it needs to be relatively recently felled so to ensure that it hasn't had some wild spore consume it. So when we're going to be inoculating it with wooden dowels that have been covered in this case, oyster mushroom mycelium. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to mark out, we're going to put 30 dowels into a log this size because you want to give your mycelium the very best chance of success. So you want to put a good amount in there. From a fresh dowels is really important that they haven't been sat down around for months and months and months. So we will mark out the log and put rows of 5 around the log, and every time you do another row you will mark it in between the original row, so you're going to form this diamond pattern, and that's just going to ensure a really even amount of mycelium around your log, so whilst it's colonizing it, it's going to have a really good chance of success. Then we're going to drill holes wherever you've marked it, and we're going to hammer in each of these dowels so you can get a nice flat surface, so hammer them in gently, and then we're going to cover it in beeswax. Now you can cover it in soy wax. Some people even choose not to wax their logs, but we like to ensure that the mycelium has a really good chance of incubating the log, because woodlouse and other such bugs will eat your dowels after a period of time. So that's the process of doing it.
So is that more of a protection system? So the wax will always stay there, or does it eventually degrade?
It does eventually degrade, but by the time that it does that, your mycelium has had a really good chance to inoculate your log. So by the time it happens, that's absolutely fine.
Okay.
So you're not going to see mushrooms from a log for about a year, possibly 18 months if you're doing something that's slower growing, like a lion's mane. But for oyster mushrooms, you might see oyster mushrooms within 9 months, but I'd say about the 12-month period. But you will, from a log this size, you're going to get mushrooms for about 3 to 5 years minimum. It could be upwards of 5 years if you look after your log. You need to keep it nice and moist. You need to water it when you water your garden. Make sure it has access to natural rainfall whilst it's situated during its incubation.
Okay, and you can have it either horizontally or vertical.
That's right, yeah. So if it lays on the ground, then it's got lovely access to moisture from the ground level. If you're having it leaning up against a wall, that's absolutely fine. You need to ensure that it's not exposed to direct sunlight. As I said before, that it can get access to natural rainfall, and it's not exposed to harsh winds, because that can lead to drying it out. That's the worst thing you can do for a log, is allow it to dry out. So you just need to ensure that moisture is available to it at all times. You can cover your logs with shade netting, but you have to ensure that it's not sort of a plastic tarpaulin, because that won't allow for airflow, because mycelium's a living thing. Yes. It needs access to airflow.
Fine, brilliant. Oh, let's have a go at making these logs.
Okay. So for this, we're going to mark 6 dots on the end of the log, and this is just to ensure that we can tell where we need to drill the lines and mark the holes along, and this will ensure a nice even spread of dowels around the log. So then we mark it again as we follow each clock face. We're going to do 5 points down the log. So we'll start in the middle and do 2 marks out either side. So we've got 2 here and 2 here, and then when you mark onto the next line, you would start in between. So we've got 1 here. And then as we go to the next one, we're going to come in between again. And as you can see, we're creating a really lovely diamond pattern all the way around the log. 24 on that one, 5. And so then in the next stage, we know where to drill There we are. So that's our log fully marked out, ready for drilling.
Oops. That's what happens when you're not concentrating. Didn't want to go any further than that. That has completed one line of holes. So we've got 5 holes here. Now we need to turn the log over and start on the next 5 until we've got the whole log drilled out, which will be 6 lines of 5 or 30 holes. And my maths is brilliant for a change. So now we have got the dowels and we're going to put them into the holes. Now this is quite an easy operation because they should go straight into the holes there. We have a hammer and we're just going to tap them in gently down into the wood. Now with the dowels all in the log, we're going to put the wax onto these so that it just weatherproofs it for the next maybe 6 or 8 weeks, and therefore in that time the mycelium from these dowels will have spread into the log itself, and then after that you don't have to worry. If you don't, you run the risk of mini beasts and woodlice getting in there and eating your mycelium and dowels, which you don't want. You want the log to be impregnated. So let's have a go at this. Your beeswax is nice and it'll work quite nicely by just going on the top here. So we have some melted beeswax, which we're just dabbing on the top of where the dowels are. And there we go. If you want to, you can use soya wax. You don't have to use beeswax. So now log is finished. How am I going to look after it and where am I going to put it?
Okay, so the best placement for your log, it needs to be somewhere where it has access to natural rainfall. It's really important that during its entire lifetime that it doesn't dry out. So somewhere with some shade is really good. So if you've got a damp corner of your garden that's quite dark, that doesn't get light, that's brilliant. You don't want to give it any access to direct sunlight because that's going to risk it drying out as well. And ensure that it's out of reach of harsh winds as well. So you can either lie it down this way, that way it can draw moisture from the ground so it's quite well protected, or you can stand it upright as well and it will draw water up from the ground as well. So if you have a nice wall, if you have a wall, you can lean it up against that. So either way is fine. It's just really important that it doesn't get direct sunlight or dry out at all. If you don't have a shady corner of your garden, you can cover it with some shade netting, but you need to ensure that that's not something that's non-porous like a tarpaulin, because it needs natural airflow during its lifetime as well.
Yeah, I understand that. Okay, yeah, brilliant. Look forward to seeing a lot of mushrooms on here in the future. So it's going to be a year, isn't it?
About a year for it to inoculate, and then after its incubation period of a year, when the rainfall allows and there's a nice temperature drop between day and night, that will initiate fruiting. So you also need to remember to keep it somewhere visible in your garden, because the mushrooms really will pop up very quickly and disappear very quickly as well. So don't hide it behind a shed.
And don't forget about it. And don't put it on the log store and forget that that's meant to be like that and goes on the fire. Not a good idea. No. So the log is brilliant, but there are other ways of growing that might be more accessible to people. And I noticed you've been trying out with smaller logs. That is great because that's so much easier and someone could put it on a balcony and that type of thing. So if you grow them in bags or macrame, that can go in the house. And there must be other ways that you can grow which make it easier. This is just fun.
This is fun, and it's quite big and it's quite bulky, but it's also a long-term goal with these ones. You can get much quicker ready-to-grow kits, or even kits that you can utilise your used coffee or coffee from a coffee shop. You can collect, use that to inoculate one of the grow kits. You can grow whether you have a small flat in London or a larger house with a couple of acres in Sussex.
Brilliant. So it's not an elitist product. Anybody can grow them, and it would be good fun, and it's a healthy food for people to have.
Yeah.
So what is the plan for Caley Brothers, and where are you trying to go with all this mushroom growing?
A lot of it is about demystifying the worries and I suppose a lack of knowledge behind mushroom growing or mushrooms. They're in the shops, but a lot of people don't know how they grow. There's also the hang up of the 90s polystyrene box with button mushrooms, which are grown in the dark and in the damp. And actually a lot of mushrooms don't need the dark and the damp. They like the light, and they're also really beautiful. So it's nice to bring them out into the light so you can see them growing, and it's making it accessible. So these are large outside, but then these are much smaller that we've inoculated. They'll inoculate a lot quicker, and they could even sit on a balcony in a front garden, or even on a windowsill in a pot of water.
Brilliant. I think that's fantastic. And you're going to Chelsea Flower Show again. You did very, very well there last year. What are you planning on this year?
So last year was talking about bringing mushrooms to Chelsea. This year we want to take the conversation a little bit further and talk about how accessible mushroom growing can be. And again, an extension of, regardless of space and land you have, there are many projects out there to get growing, and we'll have a variety on show, from button mushrooms in shoe boxes to possibly some log growing, and then the variety within the mushroom world itself: shiitakes, king oysters, reishi, so many different mushrooms on display.
Brilliant. And you've got something else that you're going to be launching as well?
We have. We've actually got a book coming out in May. We've got a copy here. So this is the basics of our display at Chelsea is Project Mushroom. Within here, we've got 30 projects about mushroom growing within the home, within the garden, but also what to do with your mushrooms after you've grown them. So there's lots of lovely recipes and ideas, from tinctures and teas and coffees to dried mushrooms at the end. And this is what we're using as inspiration for our stand this year. So a lot of the projects you'll see in this book, that's out in May, will be on display at the Chelsea Flower Show.
The book looks fabulous, and I've already had a sneak peek at it. So I think it's a really good way of getting people interested in wanting to grow more mushrooms at home.
A month later, and here is my log in place, but I've realised that actually at this time of the day it's getting direct sunlight, and it's actually quite warm. I do water it, but I need to move it somewhere else. I'm going to move it behind this pot into the position in the back there, and then it will be in a shady spot protected from the wind. Hopefully all of these bits which are impregnated here will all be moving out through the log, and it will be next year now until I'm actually going to get any shiitake mushrooms from this. I hope you enjoyed this preview of Caley Brothers, and if you're coming to Chelsea you will see their products on our stand. Thank you very much for watching. Please do subscribe to the channel. If you want to watch another video of mine, YouTube thinks this one is perfect for you.